Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone. If you learned early that silence kept you safe, this video will explain why your voice still feels dangerous today. When we're children, silence often felt like safety. It was the quiet that kept us out of trouble, the unspoken rule that made the world seem less threatening. Maybe you learned that speaking up brought attention, disapproval, or even punishment. Maybe you saw that your needs, your feelings, or your thoughts didn't matter, or worse, they weren't safe to express. So you learned to hide them. You learned that your voice could be dangerous not to others, but to yourself, and what once protected you became invisible baggage you carry into adulthood. That quiet obedience, that constant monitoring of what was safe to say stayed with you. It shaped the way you move through rooms, the way you respond to criticism, the way you hesitate to ask for what you need. You might not even notice it, but that old pattern still whispers in the corners of your mind, telling you to shrink, to wait, to stay small. It shows up when you avoid conflict, when you fear speaking your truth, or when you keep your ideas to yourself. And the truth is, silence doesn't just disappear because we grow older. The habits of protection we learned as children often masquerade as adult caution. They show up in self-doubt, in people-pleasing, in the fear that our voice could be too loud, too much, or not welcome. But awareness is the first step. When you notice where you stay quiet automatically, when you recognize that this silence was learned, not inherent, you begin to separate who you are from what you were taught. You begin to see that what saved you then may be holding you back now. You can start to ask yourself gently which moments really need silence and which moments are safe for your voice to be heard. It doesn't happen all at once. It begins with noticing, with naming the quiet, with understanding that your voice, even if shaky or unsure, is allowed to exist. And every time you practice speaking, even softly in small ways, you reclaim a little more of yourself. The invisible weight you carry is not always obvious to the people around you, and sometimes it's not even obvious to yourself. It doesn't arrive in the form of a sudden tragedy or a loud announcement. It seeps in quietly over years in ways that feel small and ordinary. You might have grown up in a home where your feelings were minimized, dismissed, or considered inconvenient. You might have been told, directly or indirectly, that your needs were not important, that your emotions were too much, or that the world was safer if you kept quiet. And over time, those early lessons settle inside you like sediment at the bottom of a pond, invisible yet heavy, shaping how you perceive yourself and the world around you. When silence becomes the strategy to stay safe, it doesn't stay contained. It travels with you into every adult relationship, every professional space, every intimate moment with yourself. You might notice it in subtle ways, hesitating to ask for what you need, doubting whether your opinions matter, or shrinking when someone challenges you. You might feel a constant low hum of anxiety that you're too much or not enough, and you don't always understand why it's there. That hum is the echo of the countless times you swallowed words as a child, times when expressing yourself seemed risky, times when keeping quiet felt like survival. This weight can show up in your relationships in ways that feel confusing or frustrating. You may find yourself over-apologizing even when you haven't done anything wrong. You might notice a pattern of putting others first, sacrificing your own needs to preserve peace or to earn love. Perhaps you're overly sensitive to criticism, reacting strongly to what should feel like minor feedback. Or maybe you constantly second-guess yourself, replaying conversations in your mind, wondering if you said too much or too little. These patterns are not a reflection of your worth. They are the remnants of childhood lessons about survival, carefully etched into your nervous system, waiting for awareness to shine a light on them. The real challenge is that unspoken needs don't disappear. They don't vanish just because you're an adult now or because you tell yourself you're over it. Instead, they turn inward. They become a quiet, persistent pressure that shapes how you move through the world. You might not express your hunger for recognition, affection, or respect outwardly, but internally, you are constantly negotiating with yourself. You are asking, often without realizing it, whether you are allowed to want, allowed to need, allowed to take up space. And that inner negotiation is exhausting. It is like walking around with a secret weight on your shoulders, one that never lets you forget the lessons of your childhood. One of the most insidious aspects of this invisible weight is shame. When you grow up learning that your voice is dangerous, your needs are excessive, or your emotions are inconvenient, You internalize the message that something is wrong with you. You begin to feel flawed for simply existing as a full human being. And shame, as quiet and pervasive as it is, convinces you to hide, to blend in, to shrink. It convinces you that you are too sensitive, too demanding, too much of a risk to let anyone see your true self. Every unspoken thought, every stifled feeling, every need you deny yourself reinforces this pattern. You learn to survive not by embracing who you are, but by masking it, by burying it, by pretending that your inner world does not exist. This self-silencing has real consequences. It can make you feel disconnected from your own body, your own mind, your own heart. It can create a sense of alienation, as if you are living a life that is only partly yours. You may find yourself in relationships where you constantly give but rarely receive. You may take on burdens that aren't yours to carry. You may struggle to make decisions, fearing that your choice will be wrong or unwelcome. Even success and achievement can feel hollow if they come at the cost of your authenticity. The invisible weight is not just emotional, it becomes a lens through which you view yourself, constantly filtering every interaction, every opportunity, every moment of joy or sorrow. And yet, even though it is heavy, even though it's persistent, it is not permanent. The first step in releasing this weight is awareness. You must recognize the patterns you carry, the ways in which silence has shaped your life, and the ways in which unspoken needs continue to exert influence over your thoughts, your feelings, and your choices. Awareness is not judgment. It is noticing. It is saying, I see this in myself. I understand where it came from. And awareness is powerful because it begins to create a gap between who you are and the learned behaviors of your past. You are not your silence. You are not the weight. You are the person observing it, the person capable of choosing differently. The next step is gentle acknowledgement. Name the weight, give it a form, a voice, a presence. Say to yourself what you have never said aloud. I needed this, I wanted this, I deserved this. Even if the world never gave you permission to speak, you can give it to yourself. Journaling can help. Speaking to a trusted friend or therapist can help. Even whispering to yourself in the mirror can help. The goal is not to purge all the silence at once, that is impossible, but to start recognizing it, naming it, and slowly reclaiming the space inside you. Reflection is critical. Notice where this weight shows up in your life today. Is it in your hesitation to ask for help? Is it in your discomfort with conflict? Is it in the constant comparison to others, as if you must shrink to make the world comfortable? Observe these moments without judgment. They are not flaws, they're signs of resilience. They're the ways your younger self survived. And by recognizing them, you can begin to differentiate between survival strategies that no longer serve you and the authentic expression of your voice and your needs. Finally, take small, deliberate steps to express what has been unspoken. Start with tiny acts, a thought shared with a friend, a preference voiced to a loved one, a boundary gently enforced at work or in your personal life. Each time you allow your needs to be seen, each time you honor your emotions, the invisible weight begins to lift, not immediately, but steadily. You begin to feel the difference between survival and presence, between self-denial and self-respect. The nervous system learns that it is safe to exist fully, and slowly, the quiet anxiety that followed you from childhood begins to soften. The invisible weight is a testament to what you survived, but it is not a sentence for the rest of your life. It is a reminder of the courage it took to navigate a world that didn't always welcome your voice, and it can become the starting point for reclaiming that voice now. By acknowledging it, feeling it, and expressing it in small, intentional ways, you reclaim ownership over your inner world. You begin to live not just in reaction to fear, but in alignment with your truth. You begin to discover that your needs are valid, your feelings are legitimate, and your voice is necessary, not just for you, but for the people whose lives you touch simply by being fully yourself. And as you continue this work, something remarkable happens. The weight that once felt invisible becomes lighter. You notice joy more easily. You connect more deeply. You make decisions from a place of self-trust rather than fear. You learn that vulnerability is not weakness. It is the bridge to authentic connection and emotional freedom. What was once a burden becomes a guide, a reminder that the journey you are on is not about erasing the past, but about integrating it with courage, compassion, and self-respect. Finding your voice as an adult can feel terrifying, even if you spent years practicing silence. That fear is not a weakness. It's the echo of every moment in your childhood when speaking up felt risky. Every time you held back, every time you swallowed your words to avoid conflict, criticism, or disapproval, your nervous system learned that safety was quiet. And now, when you finally feel ready to express yourself, that old wiring still whispers, reminding you that it could be dangerous to be seen, that your needs might be unwelcome, that your words might fall flat or provoke rejection. The truth is, courage doesn't erase fear. It sits with it. It acknowledges that trembling, that hesitation, and chooses to speak anyway. The challenge of finding your voice is often compounded by the patterns you have unknowingly built around people-pleasing and self-doubt. You may find yourself thinking, if I say this, will they like me less? Or will this make me seem selfish? Those thoughts are not mere imagination. They are learned strategies for survival that worked when you were younger. You learned that pleasing others and minimizing yourself kept danger away, but those same strategies can keep you trapped in adulthood. Each moment you withhold your thoughts or avoid expressing your needs reinforces the idea that your voice is unsafe. And yet, the very thing that feels dangerous, the act of speaking, holds the key to liberation. Fear is natural in this process. Fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of being too much or not enough is part of the experience. It is a reminder that you are stepping into something unfamiliar, something that your younger self never allowed. Courage does not mean the absence of fear. It means moving forward while feeling it, leaning into discomfort, and trusting that the world can handle the real you. You may find that the first time you speak your truth, your voice shakes, your words stumble, and doubt floods in. That is the necessary beginning. Those moments are proof that growth is happening, that the silence of your past is finally being questioned, that your inner self is emerging from hiding. Expression does not have to be grand or public to matter. You don't have to deliver a perfect argument, a flawless confession, or a heroic speech. The simple act of stating your preference, sharing an opinion, or setting a boundary is an act of courage. It is a signal to yourself and to the world that your inner life has value, that your needs are legitimate, and that you are worthy of being heard. Over time, these small acts accumulate. Each whispered truth grows into a stronger tone. Each boundary softly enforced teaches your nervous system that it is safe to exist fully. Each vulnerable expression builds confidence that your voice matters, even if it feels shaky or incomplete. One of the most powerful realizations in this journey is understanding that your voice is not only about words. It is about presence, intention, and alignment. It is about letting yourself occupy space authentically, honoring your feelings, and allowing your body to respond to the world with truth rather than fear. Speaking up is inseparable from feeling safe in your own skin. When you start to acknowledge your emotions, when you name what you want, when you lean into discomfort rather than fleeing from it, you are exercising a form of courage that transforms not just your interactions, but your relationship with yourself. Your voice becomes a mirror of your self-respect, a testament to your willingness to show up fully even when it feels risky. The journey of finding your voice is also a journey of patience. You may stumble, withdraw, or fall back into old habits, and that is natural. The old patterns of silence are deeply ingrained, reinforced over years, and they will resist change. There will be moments when fear feels louder than courage, when self-doubt eclipses clarity, when speaking up seems impossible. In those moments, remind yourself that progress is not linear. Each time you recognize the resistance, each time you notice fear but still choose expression, you are reclaiming your power. You are proving to yourself that your voice is not dangerous, that your presence is not a burden, and that your inner life is worthy of being acknowledged. A key part of this process is experimentation. Find safe spaces to practice expression. Share an idea with a trusted friend. Voice a preference with a partner. Ask for help in a situation that normally triggers hesitation. Start small and allow yourself to notice the physical sensations. Heart racing, throat tightening, palms sweating without judgment. These are the markers of courage in action. Proof that your nervous system is learning a new pattern, that speaking up does not have to lead to danger, rejection, or harm. Each moment of risk taken gently and consciously retrains the mind and body to trust in the safety of expression. Another important aspect is self-compassion. Speaking your truth is not about perfection, and courage is not about never feeling fear. It is about showing up for yourself with understanding and kindness. You may fumble, you may feel awkward, you may even retreat, and that is part of the process. Every act of honesty, no matter how small, is a victory. Celebrate it, recognize it, honor it. By doing so, you reinforce the idea that your voice is a gift both to yourself and to the world. You are allowed to exist fully, to want, to need, to express, and to claim your space. Finding your voice also changes the way you perceive connection. When you speak your truth, you invite others to respond authentically. You create the possibility of real, deep engagement rather than surface-level interactions. You allow relationships to develop based on honesty, mutual respect, and understanding rather than fear, pretense, or codependence. Over time, this builds resilience and emotional safety, not only for you, but for the people around you, because honesty begets trust, and trust begets freedom. Ultimately, the act of speaking up is a declaration that your life matters, that your feelings are valid, that your story is worthy of being heard. It is a practice in claiming your humanity, in acknowledging that the fears of your past do not have to dictate the present. Each step, each word, each boundary, and each truth spoken gently but firmly chips away at the weight of childhood silence. You begin to recognize that the fear that once controlled you can coexist with courage, and that every act of expression, however small, is a seed for profound personal growth. The transformation that comes from finding your voice is subtle at first, but becomes powerful over time. You begin to notice the freedom in speaking your mind. You experience a deeper connection with yourself. You sense your worth without needing constant validation. You feel the thrill of choice, of action, and of being fully seen. And in this process, you realize that courage is not a destination, it is a practice, a daily commitment to honor your inner life, to challenge the old patterns of silence, and to allow your authentic self to emerge fully and unapologetically. Breaking the patterns that have been ingrained in you for years can feel overwhelming. It's one thing to recognize the weight of your silence, to notice how fear has shaped your choices, to glimpse the courage within yourself, but actually changing those patterns, shifting the ways you respond to the world, the ways you communicate, the ways you honor your needs, feels different. It feels risky. It feels uncomfortable. And that discomfort is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that you're growing, that your nervous system is learning a new rhythm, that your inner self is stepping into a space it was denied for so long. The first step in breaking these patterns is gentleness. Change is rarely sudden. You do not need to dismantle years of silence and self-denial overnight. In fact, trying to do so often backfires, triggering fear, shame, or retreat. Instead, change begins with small, deliberate acts. It is saying, I will allow myself to speak in this moment, or I will assert this boundary with compassion, or even I will acknowledge what I am feeling internally without judgment. These moments may feel insignificant at first, but each one is a thread in a new tapestry, a tapestry that reflects self-trust, courage, and authenticity. You may notice resistance when you try to step into these new patterns. Old habits are persistent. They are reinforced by years of self-protection and the subtle, often unconscious messages from childhood. Your body may tighten, your mind may flood with excuses, your emotions may scream that it's too risky. And yet resistance is not a wall, it is a doorway. It is an invitation to lean into discomfort, to recognize the fear, and to choose anyway. Courage is not the absence of resistance. It is the willingness to move forward despite it. Each time you acknowledge resistance without judgment and act anyway, you prove to yourself that your voice and your presence are safe, and that you are capable of more than you have allowed yourself to believe. Change also requires awareness and action. You must notice not only the moments when you fall back into silence, but also the moments when you do speak up, when you honor a need, when you assert a boundary. These small successes matter immensely. They are the proof that new patterns are possible, that your nervous system can adapt, that your inner life can be reclaimed. Reflection helps solidify this awareness. Ask yourself, when did I hesitate? When did I act differently than I would have before? What felt safe and what felt challenging? These reflections are not about judgment or criticism. They're about understanding, integrating, and reinforcing your growth. One of the most critical aspects of breaking old patterns is understanding that change is not a linear path. There will be setbacks. You may speak up and feel unheard. You may assert a boundary and encounter resistance. You may try to express a need and feel guilt, shame, or self-doubt creep back in. These moments are not failures. They are part of the process. Growth is often messy, uneven, and uncomfortable. What matters is the persistence to keep returning to the practice of honoring yourself, to keep experimenting with expression, and to keep trusting that your inner voice matters. Over time, these repeated acts of courage begin to rewire your emotional and mental patterns. You begin to feel safer in your own skin. You begin to experience freedom in expressing yourself authentically. Another key to breaking these patterns is connection. Change is easier when you have spaces where it is safe to practice, where vulnerability is welcomed, and where authenticity is supported. Share your thoughts and feelings with trusted people who encourage your growth. Seek out communities, friends, or mentors who can witness your expression without judgment. These safe spaces act as training grounds for your voice, allowing you to experiment, to feel, and to learn that expressing yourself does not lead to harm, rejection, or shame. Each time you practice in a safe space, you strengthen the internal signal that your voice is valuable and that your presence matters. It's also important to integrate compassion into every step of this process. You are not undoing a lifetime of learned behavior in a single moment. You are rewiring patterns that once kept you safe but no longer serve you. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate even the smallest victories. Notice your courage and honor your persistence. Self-compassion is a lubricant that allows change to occur smoothly without being blocked by guilt, frustration, or perfectionism. Each act of self-kindness reinforces the idea that your voice and your needs are not only legitimate, but essential. Practical action anchors this transformation. Identify one small change you can make today, one act of courage that feels possible. It could be speaking your truth in a conversation where you would normally stay quiet, asserting a boundary that you have hesitated to enforce, or acknowledging your feelings openly in a journal or with someone you trust. Start small. Observe the sensations, the fears, and the responses that arise. Then, with gentle awareness, expand that practice gradually. Over weeks and months, these small, deliberate acts accumulate into a profound shift. The patterns that once controlled you begin to loosen, and the weight of silence slowly lifts. Breaking old patterns also invites a new relationship with failure and discomfort. You will likely encounter moments when your expression is misunderstood or rejected. You may feel awkward, vulnerable, or exposed. This is not a reason to retreat. It is a sign that you are stepping into growth. Failure in this context is not permanent. It is feedback, an opportunity to learn, adjust, and continue. Each instance of discomfort, when faced with courage and compassion, reinforces resilience and strengthens your capacity to live authentically. Ultimately, breaking the patterns of silence and self-denial is about reclaiming your life. It is about moving from a state of survival to a state of presence. It is about choosing awareness over autopilot, expression over suppression, self-respect over people-pleasing, and courage over fear. Every small action you take in this direction matters. Every moment you allow your voice to be heard, every time you honor your needs, every boundary you assert reinforces the truth that you are worthy of being fully seen and fully heard. As you continue this work, you will notice subtle shifts in your life. Interactions with others become more genuine, relationships deepen, your confidence grows, and the constant anxiety of self-silencing begins to ease. You may start to experience a sense of alignment, a harmony between who you are inside and how you express yourself in the world. This alignment is not perfect, but it is profoundly liberating. It allows you to live with greater clarity, freedom, and integrity. The courage to change, to break old patterns, and to reclaim your voice is a lifelong practice, but every act of conscious expression strengthens the foundation of an authentic, resilient, and empowered life. Living with a reclaimed voice is unlike anything you've experienced before. It is not about perfection, and it is not about having every answer or never feeling fear. It is about presence. It is about stepping fully into yourself, moment by moment, and allowing your inner truth to guide your actions. It is about trusting that your thoughts, feelings, and needs matter, even if they have been dismissed for years. When you finally allow yourself to speak, to act, and to express without fear of judgment, or rejection, you begin to understand that the world can hold your full self, and more importantly, that you can hold yourself. The transformation begins subtly. You notice the way you interact with people changes. You're no longer shrinking to fit expectations that were never yours. You're no longer apologizing for existing or censoring the parts of yourself that feel vulnerable or intense. There is a quiet confidence that comes from knowing that you can exist fully and safely in your own skin, and from realizing that expressing your needs is not selfish, it is necessary. This is not about demanding the world conform to you, it is about honoring yourself within it. Each act of self-expression is a reaffirmation that your life, your presence, and your voice are valuable. Living with a reclaimed voice also reshapes your relationship with failure, with discomfort, and with uncertainty. When you speak your truth, when you act from authenticity, you will inevitably encounter moments where you are misunderstood, rejected, or challenged. These moments are not threats. They are opportunities. They are the mirrors reflecting how far you have come and how deeply your courage is being exercised. Over time, you learn to sit with discomfort without letting it define you, to feel vulnerability without retreating, and to experience risk without succumbing to fear. The voice you reclaim becomes a tool for resilience, a compass guiding you through challenges, and a reminder that courage is a practice, not a one-time achievement. Reclaiming your voice transforms your inner world in profound ways. The self-doubt that once whispered in your mind becomes quieter, less convincing, and eventually you recognize it for what it is, a shadow of old patterns that no longer serve you. The shame that once weighed heavily on your heart begins to soften, replaced by understanding, compassion, and a deep sense of self-respect. You start to realize that your voice was never dangerous. It was always essential. The fear that accompanied your expression was not a signal of threat, but a signal of growth. By facing it, leaning into it, and acting despite it, you reclaim not only your voice, but your life. Connection becomes richer and more authentic as you live with a reclaimed voice. Relationships that once felt strained, shallow, or performative begin to deepen. People respond to your honesty, your boundaries, and your clarity. You invite others to meet you where you are, and they are often more capable than you imagined of holding space for your full self. This does not mean everyone will understand you or agree with you, and it does not mean conflict disappears, but it means that you no longer sacrifice yourself for the illusion of safety, and you no longer settle for superficial connection. Your voice becomes a bridge, drawing you toward relationships built on truth, respect, and mutual understanding. The reclamation of your voice is also about daily practice. It is in the small choices, the moments when you notice hesitation and still choose to act. When you honor a need that previously would have been ignored, when you speak up for yourself in a way that feels gentle but firm. These moments accumulate into a life lived with integrity and courage. You learn to ask yourself, what do I need right now? And to answer honestly. You learn to notice where silence is serving you and where it is holding you back. You learn to distinguish between fear that is protective and fear that is limiting. With each conscious choice, you strengthen your capacity to live authentically and fully. Living with a reclaimed voice is not only personal, it ripples outward. By showing up as yourself, you give others permission to do the same. Children, friends, partners, colleagues, anyone who witnesses your courage and authenticity feels the subtle invitation to honor themselves. You become a living example that voice, presence, and self-expression are not only safe, but necessary. And in this way, the work of reclaiming your voice becomes a form of quiet leadership, of inspiration, and of contribution. You do not need to be loud or dramatic to create impact. The act of showing up fully is itself transformational. The emotional reward of reclaiming your voice is profound. You begin to feel a sense of home within yourself, a clarity that comes from no longer being divided between who you are and how you express yourself. Life becomes less exhausting because you are not constantly negotiating with fear, shame, or self-doubt. You experience freedom in the act of expression, a lightness that comes from allowing your thoughts, feelings, and needs to be seen and acknowledged. You begin to trust yourself, your intuition, and your capacity to navigate the world without shrinking, hiding, or silencing essential parts of who you are. Ultimately, living with a reclaimed voice is about embracing your humanity fully. It is about honoring the journey that brought you here, the lessons of survival, the weight of silence, the courage to step forward despite fear. It is about recognizing that you are allowed to exist, to want, to feel, and to be heard. Every act of speaking your truth, every boundary you assert, every need you acknowledge is a step toward freedom, self-respect, and authenticity. And over time, these small steps lead to a life in which fear no longer dictates your choices and in which your inner voice becomes the most trusted guide you will ever know. Living with a reclaimed voice is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of a life lived fully. It is a commitment to continue speaking, showing up, and honoring yourself even when it feels risky. It is a recognition that your presence, your words, and your essence are worthy. And it is a quiet celebration of all that you have endured, all that you have learned, and all that you are now capable of becoming. In choosing to live with your voice reclaimed, you are choosing to step into the fullness of your life, to claim your space, and to move forward with courage, clarity, and self-respect.